Welcome back to the Doing Good podcast, where we celebrate volunteers, their stories, organizations, and passion for making a difference. I'm Megan McInnes, your host for this episode, and I'm glad you're here with us. After listening, we encourage you to share this volunteer story to hopefully educate or even inspire someone to act. Now, on to celebrating those who are doing good. Welcome to today's Doing Good podcast. I'm so glad to welcome Stephanie Wynn. Stephanie, welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you for having me, Megan.
Absolutely. Now, I am fortunate to know a little bit about you already, but would you please introduce yourself in general to the listener so they know a little bit about who you are?
So my name is Stephanie Wynn. I am a mother of two sons, 30 and 26.
Wow.
I'm also the founder of the Stephanie A. Wynn Foundation. It's a nonprofit organization where we focus on inflammatory bowel disease, those who are diagnosed with Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, specifically in underserved communities. That's a little bit about me. I love serving. I love giving back. I do believe that you have to serve first before you act. And I just love helping those that can't help themselves. It just takes your mind off of what you have going on, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally. You're giving back to someone who may need your help. And so that's a little bit about me.
That is. Thank you very much. Well, you've already introduced us to why you're here, like how it is we came about featuring you today. But would you mind starting us from the beginning of your story? How did you begin to volunteer? Was it as a result of or because of this Crohn's and colitis experience, or did you start as a child or somewhere in between?
Well, so volunteering has always been something that I've always wanted to do. Growing up, my parents, my mom and dad will always, take us to their company picnics. And I would see how like the employees would like volunteer, or they would have community events in the community and they would volunteer. But what really pushed me into volunteering was my barber and I, we had every year he was like, hey, we need to start, giving back to the homeless. And I saw how he would feed the homeless, like just literally like on the street. Like he would just feed them, give them some food. Or if they said they were hungry, he would like, come go with me, let me give you some food. And I saw how like it just really changed their lives. Like even just with something as simple as a meal would just make someone feel like good about themselves. And so from there, I was like, you know what? I can't walk by somebody that's unhoused again. And I'll even take it back further. There was this guy, he's still there. It's been over 30 years. He's been on this corner here locally in my city. And I remember saying, when I grow up, when I become an adult, I'm going to help him. And then one day I told my dad, he was like, you don't have to wait. You can do it now. And so we started helping, we started feeding him. And so just making sure every month that he had food, like not just any food, just the food that he wanted to eat. So we were asking like, what are you eating? What do you want to eat this month? And he was like, whatever you're giving me, stuff. So, and that's what we were doing. So it even trickled down to my children. Like they know like, hey, we got to go and feed Joe today. We got to go take care of Joe, And so that just became something that was just instilled in me from my parents. And so they always taught me like, you got to help others first because there's always somebody who's doing worse than you are. That's where the volunteer started from.
I love that story, and I want to go meet Joe. I bet he has some stories and can share some wisdom about real people and, the people who help or choose not to help, that sort of thing. And I so appreciate that you offered and asked Joe what he wanted to eat.
Yes.
I mean, what a simple thing, but true.
Yeah. So, what I've noticed is not to take away from the people that are doing the work out here and feeding the unhoused or the vulnerable community. It's just, do we ever ask them what they would like? What would you like? What do you like? Just a simple conversation. They're people too. And in fact, most of the people that we serve, as far as like the unhoused or the vulnerable community, what we do is we talk to them because they're people. They're everyday people. And so when you sit down and you have a conversation with them, you tend to be more grateful and appreciative because that could have been your story, you know? So,
It's so good. And again, right, it takes time. It's
yes.
just a matter of that time and being
Mhm.
human with the next person, right?
Correct.
So good. Well, I'm glad your dad said go on and help him now.
Yes.
The influence of parents and
Mhm.
families on volunteering just seems to always be a factor, at least. Um, so will you say a little bit more about, like you said, that began, Joe
Mhm.
came into your life more or less around 30 years ago.
Mhm.
And then as you became older and you
Yes.
attended the picnics, and
Yes.
then did you choose to volunteer directly or indirectly with anybody else or any organizations along the way?
Yeah, so what we would do is we would have so I would partner with like St. Vincent de Paul, which is an organization here that helps a lot of the unhoused population here in our city. We live in Florida, so it's within the Tampa Bay area. So we would go in and we would do instead of bringing the first year we partnered with St. Vincent de Paul and we brought them into the barbershop. So we would give free haircuts and food to this community of people. And so the next year we were like, okay, we're gonna go into St. Vincent de Paul. Where they are, we'll bring the services to them. And so that's what we did. We brought the free haircuts. Because if you look good, you feel good, right? And so that was our thought with that. And then also we partner with a local agency here, which is it's one of the it's an agency for foster kids. And so we would give free back to school, like haircuts for back to school, backpacks, and we would feed them. And then we would have like the bounce house and things of that nature, face painting at the barbershop for this community, for the children. And so each year we would give back before Thanksgiving just to, make sure that they have, even in Thanksgiving, we would have food that we would give out to the community as well. So yes, we partner with the St. Vincent de Paul. I've also partnered with Front Porch. Matter of fact, last Saturday we had an event where we gave back to the communities, the moms or the parents who have children and they just need a little help for Christmas. So we partner with them to volunteer to make sure that everyone had their bags. It was a good opportunity. It's a good opportunity. So very grateful and thankful.
It sounds like it. And I have to say, I did a quick Google search just then to see if I could find the name of the foster care nonprofit,
Yeah,
because I thought surely I can find one or it. But there's so many.
yeah, so there is the Jewish Foundation, Florida, I think it's Florida Gulf Coast and Jewish Services. That's one of the organizations. And then there was another one, but they're no longer in around. They actually merged with, I think it's what is the name of it? It's on the tip of my tongue. It's they're now family services. So that's the foster services that they use now in the state of Florida. But we would partner with them each year. So, but yeah, we would do the back to school drive with the barbershop and partner with those people. But yeah, it's Florida Gulf Coast and Jewish Services, I believe.
Thank you for that. And then let's give a shout out to the barber shop. Has it been one continuous one you've been with this entire time?
Yes, so it's Mister's with a Z instead of a S, Misterz, Mister's Barber Lounge. In St. Petersburg, Florida, they do the back to school event and then they do the cuts for kids and then they do the before Thanksgiving feeding the homeless.
So, how has that carried on into your life as an adult now?
So being a volunteer is that's just this it's a no-brainer for me now. Like that's a part of that's something that I do frequently. Again, like I said, I make sure that I incorporate volunteering in everything that I do each and every year with different organizations, but I try to stay consistent with the organizations that just aligns with what I believe in. I will say I don't volunteer just for any and everything because I can't be everywhere and I can't do everything. So sometimes if you're not careful, you will burn out. But just pick a, I just pick organizations that I know that really we could really make some impact.
So good. And speaking of impact,
Yeah, specifically like grassroots nonprofit organizations, those that are starting up, and they, not to say that the bigger organizations can't help, but those grassroots, they need volunteers, they need volunteers. And so that's how I determine which organization that I'm going to volunteer for during the year.
what a cool approach. I appreciate that. And speaking of impact, I want to bring attention to the nonprofit you founded. Can you tell us a little bit about why you founded it first?
So 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and it was very debilitating. I almost died from this condition because, after going through six doctors, nobody could tell me what was going on with me. And so what I found was there was a disparity. It shouldn't have taken six doctors to get to one diagnosis. What I found was that there's no blueprint for people who are diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease. So when you're diagnosed, you have to figure it out. Versus someone who's diagnosed with colon cancer or breast cancer, they're provided with a nurse, an advocate team, and so that may be an oncologist, nurse ambassadors, if you will. And so they don't have that for inflammatory bowel disease. It's not in the zip codes that we serve. And so I found that that was a disparity because what is this? What is this condition? I don't know what this condition is. I didn't know. And then I was like, that's an issue. I need help. We need help. There's people that are suffering in silence. And from there, I was like, I got to help those who can't speak for themselves. And so that's where the Stephanie A. Wynn Foundation was founded, why it was founded. It was there during my struggle of trying to get access to quality GI services, quality healthcare, diet and nutritionists. And so in the zip codes that we serve and the zip codes that I live in, there aren't those services. I have to drive 30 minutes away to get this treatment that I need, or go 30 miles north or 30 miles south to get quality GI services. And so I found that's a disparity. And because we have to, IBD patients, we can't eat or digest the things that normal people would be able to eat and digest. So the zip codes that we serve, there's a food desert. There's not whole nutritious foods within a 5-mile radius of the zip codes that we serve, only gas stations and corner stores or fast food restaurants. And so that's a disparity. That's another issue, food insecurities. So that was one of the things that I was like, we have to make a change to this, because it's not just me that's suffering from this condition. There's a lot of people who are suffering, not only in the African American community, but in other cultures as well. They just don't know where to get help, and they don't know, like, what do I do? How do I navigate through this healthcare system, and not just the healthcare system, but how do I navigate this condition? So that's what prompted us to establish the Stephanie A. Wynn Foundation. And we have volunteers that have just really poured into the organization. We couldn't do the work without our volunteers. And so we've been established since 2021. So we have 2 programs, which is the IBD Patient Navigator program. And then we also have an outreach program, which is our Exploring Health Equity Lunch and Learn series.
Fantastic. And I do want to know a little bit more about each, and especially like stories that you could share about them. But please back up for 2 seconds. And for those who may not know, I'm hearing both Crohn's and colitis. Is there a difference? If so, what is the difference? Can you give us a basic 101 about it?
Yes. So inflammatory bowel disease is totally different from irritable bowel syndrome. So IBS and IBD are 2 totally different conditions. So I want to say that first. IBS, you can fix that with just some brief adjustments, and that's, to your diet, whatever it is that you're having issues with. But I definitely recommend you contact a doctor so that they can find out what's going on. But just for the purposes of the podcast, They're two different conditions. Some are similar. Symptoms are similar. So, inflammatory bowel disease is chronic inflammation of your gastrointestinal tract. There are two forms of IBD, which is Crohn's disease. Crohn's disease affect anything from your mouth to your bum. So, disease can show up anywhere in between those areas. Ulcerative colitis is the symptoms are pretty much the same. Not well similar, but it affects a certain area of your digestive system. So for me, when I first was diagnosed, that's why they couldn't get to the right diagnosis. It appeared that in my large intestines, I was diagnosed. It showed colitis, active colitis in my large intestines, and then in my colon it appeared to show up as Crohn's disease. And so that's why some of the doctors couldn't figure out, like, I think it's Crohn's, but it looks like ulcerative colitis. And so I was like, look, I can't go by I think. I need to know what it is. And that's what also drove me to create a blueprint for IBD patients, which is navigating IBD. It is a 6-week blueprint for better health, better gut health. And so that's what I found. A lot of patients didn't know, like, what is this? Like, you told me I have inflammatory bowel disease. It's Crohn's and it's ulcerative colitis. So what is both? And so, but yeah, both of them, Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, are two forms of inflammatory bowel disease.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And for anyone who is interested in, I'll say, finding out more about these health issues, what are some, I'll say, very reputable websites or organizations for them to go to, even say on a computer?
Yeah, so if they're the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, that's one. And I forgot to mention, we used to volunteer for them too. We volunteer as volunteers with the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. They're pretty good. They have a lot of information on their website. There's many organizations out there. You have the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. You also have COGI. That's another. That's COCCI.org. That's another organization. And then, of course, the Stephanie A. Wynn Foundation. But you can just Google inflammatory bowel disease information. You have the the ACG, American Collegiate of Gastroenterology. You have that. You got the CDC. It's so many organizations that can provide you with sources on inflammatory bowel disease.
And so people know CDC means cdc.gov, right? Centers for Disease Control.
Correct. And then, but you also want to, I would definitely recommend that if they're having stomach issues, please contact your primary care physician so that they can recommend a good gastroenterologist so that they can see what's going on.
Fantastic. Well, tell us a little bit more about these programs you've developed. It sounds from just an idea in your head. And how have you seen, I'll say, can you give us a story of how one affected a client, maybe as you volunteered providing it?
So we have we have the our IBD patient navigator program. That is like our main hub, if you will. That's where we provide our outreach program. We have the Exploring Health Equity, where we help remove health disparities in the underserved African American communities by providing Lunch and Learn series. And those Lunch and Learn series are in the fall of every year from August to November, where we, on one Saturday per month, we bring in experts. We start with mental health and wellness, because one of the things that we know with any chronic illness, you have to get your mind right. You have to get your mind fully right. You need to go see someone so that you can advocate for yourself. And so we start with mental health and we end with patient advocacy. And so what our goal is to teach IBD patients or IBS patients how to advocate for themselves when they are diagnosed with this chronic illness. What questions to ask. One of our success stories was we had a single mom who has a son who was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And one of the tips that we provided was telehealth services. when you have IBD, sometimes you have a flare up. You can't leave your house because you're going to the bathroom so many times a day. So instead of missing your appointment, maybe ask the doctor's office, hey, do you all offer telehealth services so that I don't have to miss my appointment? Because sometimes you may be on the list for 6 months to a year to see a GI doctor.
Mm-mm.
And that's an issue, right? And so asking for telehealth services, this allows you to continue on and manage your condition without any disruption or delay. But that's where we are with healthcare, right? So our goal is to really provide for the IBD Patient Navigator program. Our goal is to help IBD patients navigate through the healthcare system and not be afraid and build up that confidence so that they can have better health outcomes as they go along this journey.
So great. And
Mhm.
do you remember someone receiving that and how maybe they experienced it or what the outcome was?
So the outcome, so again, like I said, our Lunch and Learn series, that's one of our programs where we walk them through step by step. So you got to start with mental health and wellness. And then we talk about understanding what IBD is. Do you understand what that is? Do you understand the diagnosis that your doctor just provided you?
So did you see the light bulb go off with someone one time?
Yeah, that's one of the success stories. They didn't understand, like, what questions do I ask when I go to
Right.
the doctor? What I didn't know, like, what this is. Even the other night I got a text like at 11 o'clock. My son, he's running to the bathroom. What do I do? Okay, what did your son eat? The first thing in my mind, what did he eat? What's his diet like? And so we also, with the Lunch and Learn series, we provide a diet and nutritionist, a registered dietitian, so that she can teach you how to read labels so that you're not eating foods that's triggering a flare up. So stress is a culprit with flare-ups. One of the culprits, your diet and just your environment. What is your environment like? Is it stressful? Is it livable? What's going on in the environment? Are you in a safe space? Do you have peace in your home? Is it always stressful? And so that's we teach, how to actual navigate, but we start with mental health, understanding IBD, diet and nutrition, and then we do advocacy.
I love it. I love it. And it sounds like even I'll say a mom, whether there was a dad there or aunt, uncle, grandparent, it doesn't matter, but a mom was able to text you at some random time of night, and you could tell even via text that she had an aha moment that she was able to understand, and
Mhm.
hopefully it helped the child sleep through the night, the mom sleep through the night, and everybody have a better day the next day, and possibly allow them or provide them some education to take along with so they have a better quality of life as well.
Absolutely. So what I did, I provided her with the registered diet and nutritionist as a resource so that she can partner with her. She also do grocery store tours. So she will walk you through the grocery store and teach you how to shop for yourself. Like
Mhm.
you try all these diets and you go down this rabbit hole, and then it's still, sick. I tried them all. I tried vegan, vegetarian, plant based, all of them except for the plant based. I had good success with that, but the majority of them made it worse. Like I was getting sicker, and so
Oh,
then that's because I didn't understand the label reading on the back. So again, it's the lack of knowledge and not knowing what you're putting inside of your body. And so that's our goal, is to just educate our community on, are you familiar with what's on the back of that label? How are you tracking your symptoms? You got to track your symptoms so that you can communicate that to your doctor. And so, yeah.
so smart. I love how you're weaving in patient advocacy and what people can do for themselves that frankly are not big tasks or a huge step maybe, but each thing adds up, and that really is what develops the patient advocacy and what results in a successful visit with your doctor,
Yes.
if you have one who halfway listens to you, and a better outcome.
Yes.
Um, well, Do you have any additional stories you'd like to share before we start to close out for the day?
Maybe just recommendations for those who are, wanting to get into volunteering and serving, you
Yes.
know.
Say more, please.
I love volunteering. Like any way I can help. My mom's always tell me like you'll give up. You can't give everything away, Stephanie. So, but one thing I will say is that be intentional about volunteering. Don't just do it because I got to go volunteer. No, be intentional about volunteering and find an organization that you believe in, right? An organization that is going to that is making impact in the community. Sure, there's a lot of organizations out there, but have you done your research? Are they really making a difference in the community that you live in? And so that's one of the takeaways that I would say. Like when it's time to volunteer, just do your research and again be intentional about the organization that you select. Ask questions. How can we what value could you bring to that organization and vice versa?
And because you brought them up earlier, you talked about, or it sounded like you had a passion for grassroots organizations.
Yes.
So when someone is researching a grassroots organization, what do you suggest or recommend for them to watch for or to be cautious of?
Well, so sometimes, some grassroots organizations, they're new. They're new.
Hmm.
They're fresh out, you know, they're just starting, and so what I would recommend is that just make sure you do your due diligence, make sure that the cause that they're representing, the mission, that you believe in that mission. That goes back to doing your
Hmm.
research, making sure that they are who they say they are,
Hmm.
and just make sure that they're not doing anything unethical. You have a right to know that as a volunteer. What are they doing? Are they following the lines? Because you may just do more than just volunteering or just showing up for one event. You may end up on a committee or something, and so you want to make sure that represent that the organization that you select, that their organization is meeting the needs of the community that they're serving.
So good, right? And I appreciate how you are suggesting people to go directly to the organization,
Yes.
right? It's not just about, I'll say, the social media page,
Hmm.
or if your friend has heard about them, because maybe that organization, that small nonprofit, hasn't gotten there yet.
Hmm.
They need you or someone to be able to step in and help.
Yes.
So everybody has their own strengths, and
Hmm.
man,
Yes.
is a grassroots nonprofit not the
Hmm.
place for someone to go to
Yes.
help. And I love your focus again on the mission.
Hmm.
I think there's nothing more beautiful than a group of strangers coming together to achieve a common
Yes.
mission they all
Yes.
believe in. How
Hmm.
cool is that?
Definitely.
So thank you,
Yes.
thank you, thank you for that. Now, do you have any final thoughts, any suggestions, any ideas, any messages you want to be sure to get across to anybody listening today?
No, just, if you're not ready to volunteer, that's fine. Just take your time. Take your time and learn or write a list. Maybe you write a list of 10 organizations that you would like to tap into. Do your research. It's like with anything, just like you said, don't just look at social media, maybe even dig a little bit deeper. Don't and I would even say don't even look at Google reviews. You got to go deeper
Mhm,
than that, right? You got to go look
mhm.
at their website, contact them, get on the phone, have a discussion, maybe do a Zoom call, find out if this organization is a right fit for you because you matter as the volunteer. So again, the value that you're bringing is going to help that organization that you select move their mission forward.
I am so glad we were able to celebrate you and move your foundation's mission forward just a
Thank you.
little bit today. Stephanie Wynn, thank you so much for all you do and all you are, and just for letting us take a little bit of your time
Yes.
to celebrate you and your life of volunteerism, everything from Joe
Yes.
to your daily life now with
Mhm.
the Stephanie A. Wynn Foundation.
Thank you so much, Megan, for allowing me to be on your podcast.
Thank you to all the Doing Good volunteers. And I'll just name off Jay and Emily real quick, who are the ones leading this particular episode. Thank you so much to the listeners, and we look forward to seeing you again as together we are celebrating those who are doing good. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Doing Good podcast. If you enjoyed our conversation today, we invite you to subscribe or rate us on your favorite podcast platform. And follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, or YouTube at Doing Good TV. Doing Good is a 501c3 nonprofit. Please donate to support this podcast via the donate button on our website, doinggood.tv. And while you're there, nominate a volunteer you know for us to celebrate on a future episode. Together, let's celebrate those who are doing good.